Good morning, everyone. I hope I'm audible. Okay, good morning again. I am Monmi Barwa, working as an Associate Fellow at the Environment, Education and Awareness Division at TERI. And I welcome all the teachers, principals, distinguished speakers, and my entire team at TERI to the Educators Workshop of GREEN Olympiad, which is a premier examination on the environment and sustainable development. GREEN Olympiad, as you must be aware by now, it's a leading school-based initiative of TERI. The journey started in 1999 as India's premier environment quiz for school students. Since then, it has incorporated several stages of initiatives at TERI in the field of sustainable sustainability transformation to match the aspirations of the academic community to establish an environment education brand. Reaching out to nearly 2,000 schools annually in India, 20,000 schools annually in India and abroad, this Olympiad is designed for students of Standard 4 to Standard 12. And the overall objective basically of this initiative is to sensitize and build students capacity on the environment, sustainability and green skills. Green Olympiad has a massive outreach since its inception. It is not restricted to schools in India, but also we have seen participation from schools in Australia in the West Coast, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Fiji, Indonesia, Iran, Kingdom of Bahrain, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Kenya, Kuwait, Mexico, DF, Nepal, Russia, Singapore, State of Qatar, Sultanate of Oman, United Kingdom, United Arab Emirates, United States of America, the Bahamas, Turkey, and Turkmenistan. We also have initiated a GEO for youth, which is for the postgraduates and undergraduates. And, we have started this since 2020. And so this is just a gist about, GEO for the workshop today. And before we begin our formal session and, also to familiarize you all with the work we do, I would, like to screen TERI movie here. And for this, I would request IT team to kindly play the TERI multimedia, please. Thank you. I'm sorry, Ritu, we can't, it's not audible. Yeah, yeah.
Was established in 1974, and in the last 5 decades of our journey, we have ensured sustainable, equitable growth for all. We started thinking much before others that for the security of the country, energy security is going to be one of the main things.
Distributed renewable energy will play a vital role in meeting India's goal of energy for all.
बहुत सारा काम होता है सोलर लाइट में, ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ लाइट ही बढ़ता है.
This is evident in villages where solar energy has given rural women the opportunity to become entrepreneurs. Or in clusters, where we have set up solar devices to run power looms by all major refineries in India to treat oil spills on land. We closely monitor the ecological impact of climate change in hotspots across the country. For example, how glacial melt will affect downstream communities in the Indian Himalayas. Our climate modeling work informs both government and industry on the climate risks that India is likely to be exposed to in the coming decades. As these risks become strikingly evident on human health, we are fostering synergy among health, climate science and policy experts to prepare for this emerging challenge.
We have totally banned hunting, fishing. We want to protect and preserve the biological diversity of this area.
Be it guiding forest communities to conserve their biodiversity and promote ecotourism, or helping farmers adopt improved plant varieties and practices, or helping communities improve livelihood from forest resources, or marine resources, or enabling tribal communities to source nutrition from home gardens. We help climate-stressed communities in diverse ecosystems restore their environment and yet improve their well-being. Our mycorrhizal technology, applied as a biofertilizer, has reduced the use of chemical fertilizers and improved productivity of crops across India and parts of North America and Europe. We're now pushing the frontiers of nanobiotechnology to answer some of the most critical questions that confront our environment.
Ready, go.
While creating knowledge all these years, we have strived just as hard to spread this knowledge far and wide. From using community radio to sensitize farmers in the Himalayan region, to engaging with students and teachers across cities and towns and villages of India, to gathering the world's finest leaders and thinkers at the World Sustainable Development Summit.
Equality, equity, and climate justice.
The Sustainable Development Goals of the UN are central.
The pandemic has exposed systemic fragilities and inequalities that threaten the basis of sustainable development.
We make every effort to take our message to every section of society. Now, into the 5th decade of our journey, we are a team of 1,000 professionals constantly raising the bar for ourselves to accelerate India's transition to a safer and sustainable future.
Thank you so much, IT. I hope all could at least get a glance of what we do, what TERI does. So to begin with, at the very onset of this meeting, I would request Dr. Devleen K. Kehlon, Senior Fellow and Associate Director of Environment Education Awareness Area at TERI, to kindly deliver the welcome remarks and setting the tone. Thank you.
Thank you, Monmi. Very good morning to all our dear participants who have joined us today for this educators workshop. I hope the connectivity issues have resolved now. We are all able to hear. We are here via the media of a digital tool, that is this this online session. So good morning, Yukti ma'am. I can see you there. Welcome to the workshop. I have just a few points to place over here because I don't want to stand in between the rich content that is going to be spoken about and the logistics of the event, which we will be handling later. First of all, I want to thank you all for being joined with us on this Green Olympiad initiative. We need to be very proud of this association, and while we are being proud of this association, it leaves a lot of duties for us to be able to deliver all the promises made to the schools, teachers across the country. I was going through the chat before we started the session और बहुत अच्छा लगा देखकर कि भारत के हर तरफ से, हर स्टेट से हमारे साथ एडुकेटर्स आज की वर्कशॉप में जुड़े हैं। तो आप सबको बधाई हो। और एक चीज मैं आपको बताना चाहती हूँ, इवन बिफोर the government started this online examinations, online classes and all. Green Olympiad in the year 2020, when the pandemic had struck, was one of the first programs which immediately went online. And of course, when we did this, there were initial hiccups, there were issues, but we went on with the challenge and we were able to be quite successful, and we were reachable and connected with the schools from the month of November till the month of February. So examination that was usually conducted on one single day was extended in different stages. It was in different slots. Repeat examinations were given to students. So our endeavor was that no child should lose out. And even when they were not able to attempt the examination, because that was a stage when students were still not very apt with the mobile phones, with the laptops, computers, we provided them with question papers. Because Green Olympiad is just not a test for the students. It is a platform where we expect them to learn about the world around them. And another change which we have been quite successful in initiating is, along with environment and sustainable development, we have roped in the theme of green skills even before NEP was formally announced into the examination paper. So a student who is attempting Green Olympiad, we go on a premise, will come to know about environment, the elements of environment, the dynamics of the cycles, the natural cycles. The student will be equipped to understand about sustainable development, the sustainable development goals, how they're all interconnected, and the student will move forward and know more about green skills. And all these three, I don't have to say much about it because my learned teaching fraternity knows about the NEP, which is now implemented, are very well covered in NEP. One thing that we say is we do not prescribe you any books, because we don't want to get students into that practice of getting guidebooks, question papers, though we provide sample papers, which is again available. So they were queries, they were questions. So we moved forward. We said, okay, we give you a level of practice. That is how we introduce the mock paper. But all our students who are linked with us in Green Olympiad are not expected to do any rote learning. They don't, but the paper is in sync with the syllabus. We are aware about the NCERT books. We are aware about the CBSE pattern of examination. So we are trying to improvise and keep the students at par to the changes that are happening in the education system. In the process, we have very good positive endorsements, which my colleagues are going to speak about. And what I would say is that Green Olympiad not only gives you a platform of performance, it gives TERI also credibility and recognition. We are really grateful and thankful to all the schools who are linked with us, because in whichever city we need to go and work, our first point of contact is we look at the schools there who have been a part of Green Olympiad. So as we move on into projects and all, we will see, we have done it, we will do it in future, that whichever school participates in Green Olympiad will be our first choice of induction into TERI projects linked with citizens, linked with RWAs, linked with the academics. And this year, as you will come to know a little later, we are also joining several of TERI's core thematic areas of expertise in the sphere of sustainable development, 2 citizen science projects. And when we are doing it, we are again going to get back to our schools, and all these initiatives are free of cost. So, you know, there is again, like I want to say it right in the front, some schools have that question that why do we have to register? Why do we have to pay the fees? Ma'am, sir, the purpose is we want to join with people who stay committed and make us answerable to your participation. So once you are involved with the program, that is sort of your parking fee to be involved with TERI. And after that, whatever TERI does, whatever we work around, of course, the examination is the first pillar. We see to it that we are able to connect the dots, and all the schools, we have close to now 3,500 schools who are involved with us to Green Olympiad, to be a part of all our initiatives, be it direct, be it online, be it the training workshops, be it conferences. So that is what broadly I wanted to talk about. So you saw the film about TERI. Please visit our website, see the areas that we work in: renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, circular economy. Wherever the school has a query, a question, a hand-holding movement, please get back to us, to my colleagues in environment education and awareness, and we will definitely have an answer for you immediately, or we will connect you to the experts who will be able to help you in that sphere. So with these words, welcome to the workshop. I am there for the next duration of the program, and we are there joined with you forever. If you see the first letter, the first line of all my letters to you is, you are a part of TERI family. So we are there with you. Green Olympiad is just one step, and there are so many others with which we stay connected with you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Livleen, for giving us such a warm welcome and also sharing some useful information regarding school projects we have in TERI and about you as well. Thank you again, ma'am. Now for the keynote session, which is on the plastic management, its trends, policy, and rules and rule of schools and RWAs. We are very fortunate to have with us today Dr. Sunil Pandey, who is a senior fellow and director at the Environment and Waste Management at TERI. Dr. Pandey, we welcome you, sir, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Manmi, and very good morning to all of you. And let me share my presentation with you all. See if
We can see the screen, sir, the first slide.
You can see the first slide?
Yes, sir.
Let me try increasing the size.
Gee, a little larger will be good.
Very clear.
Is this clear? So shall I
Yes.
begin? Okay, thank you. So because I'm not sure how will the size be increased. Okay.
It is visible.
Yeah.
It is visible.
Yeah, sure. So what
It is serving the purpose, please.
Sure. Thank you very much, and very good morning to all of you. So what we're going to discuss in maybe next half an hour or so is the current issue of plastic waste management. And why we are discussing this, because it has got not only local impacts, local consequences, but also global consequences. Much like climate change, which is obviously, I mean, most debated issues now. Issue of marine litter also has become important issue. And 80–90% of this marine litter actually is composed of plastics. The studies have shown that majority of this is plastics which are leaking from the collection system, which are not recycled, and which finally go to the coastal waters and marine systems. So with this brief background, I'll begin my presentation. to look at basically the problem of in the Indian cities, how much in the municipal waste generation, how much plastics we are generating. If you look at this study, which was done by there's a premium organization in India looking at plastics technology, which is called CIPET. It is based in Chennai. The headquarters is based in Chennai. They have done the study with Central Pollution Control Board, looking at how much on an average plastics getting generated along with municipal solid waste. And their estimates, if you see the slide, roughly on an average, it's 8 to 10% in most of the cities. Cities which are larger, which are more affluent, generate a little more, and towns and cities which are smaller and which are not so economically rich, generate a little less. But roughly on an average, around 8 to 10% is the plastic waste, which is generated as part of the municipal solid waste. Now, the quantity is not much, but the main issue is that the plastic and also the recycling is pretty high. But the main issue is what is not collected and what remains littered in the city becomes a problem, which I'll try to capture in the slides which follow. Generally, when you move around city sites, you'll see this very familiar picture where you'll see waste dumped on a side road or a vacant area. And sometimes municipal authorities pick it up. Now, of course, with Swachh Bharat Mission coming in, the cities have got more active and are collecting more and more. But still, quite often you find such scenes also when you move around the city, where all kind of wastes are dumped, waiting to be picked up by municipal authorities. And plastics, as you see, plastic packaging especially, are one of the major components here. What happens is ultimately whenever these are collected, they reach one of such waste disposal sites, which this waste dumping site. This example is actually from Bangalore, but most of the cities have similar scenes. And all these waste till now, though segregation is mandated by the rules, many cities are still not being able to segregate. And so the waste still reaches the dump site. And what's the impact of this waste reaching dump site unsegregated is in the next slide. The photograph on the left-hand side, which you see, is a pond. And this is a pond which is leachate pond. What happens is when the rainfall comes, the waste gets washed away. Waste gets washed, and all the soluble material which is there in the waste gets dissolved in rainwater, and finally gets ponded in the low-lying area. And this is one of the waste dump sites in Delhi, which has, very large 3 dump sites which are creating a lot of environmental problems. And on the right-hand side, if you see a closer view of that pond, you can actually find a lot of cattle because the site is unguarded, unfenced. So a lot of cattle regularly approach there, drinking that water, especially in summertime when they're thirsty. And this leachate is actually very harmful. And often these animals on a long-term basis die if they keep consuming such contaminated, polluted water. What else can happen if such waste is not separated, segregated, and sent for recycling? Many times, this is also one of the dumping sites, and you can see smoke coming out of dumping site. And this smoke indicates that there's a fire beneath. And this fire can happen because of 2 reasons. One is the organic waste, green waste, which is not sorted out and which is reaching the dump site. At some point of time, after a few months, few years, it starts producing something which is called landfill gas. And this landfill gas is primarily rich in methane. And whenever it comes out in the air, there's a possibility that it will catch fire. And this is one incidence of landfill gas catching fire. Second cause of fire can be also the plastic waste and the combustibles which are there at the landfill site. Because many times what happens is when the waste reaches the dumping site, there are many waste pickers who try to salvage something which is of value in the waste and try to bring them out. And while doing that, many times what is left at in the dumping site, they put it on fire. So that what it does, basically it causes not only air pollution problem, but also if this methane keeps emitting, then which methane, as you know, is a climate gas. It's a greenhouse gas. It also contributes to global warming. This is a couple of years back, just before, in fact, the lockdown was in place. We were moving around in the coastal areas in the country and looking at evidences of if plastics which are not managed properly, what is happening to them. And these are some photographs telling you that cities and locations which are very close to coastal waters, coastal waters have, in case if their waste is not managed properly, there is every possibility that eventually that waste would go into coastal water and finally become a part of marine debris. One another problem which is contributed not by packaging plastic, but is contributed by other plastics which are used in coastal regions very frequently, which is a fishing net. Fishing net is often made of, now it's made of nylon based threads. And when they become, they're discarded, and they are often discarded on shore. So they also at some point of time degrade and then contribute to marine pollution in the coastal waters. The next photograph is consequences of all this and how it has been impacting the coastal pollution. And if you can read this, I don't want to read this. It's not surprise that, though I mean it's in a lighter vein, but it's not a surprise that coastal flora and fauna are getting impacted by plastics which are being disposed. And you might have seen many photographs of turtles having straws stuck in their nose, or fish when they are cut open, you'll find plastics inside. So these instances have become a reality now, and that is why now that's the reason why we have been more concerned about the way we manage our plastics. Interestingly, plastic wastes, actually plastic use as a packaging material historically came because we wanted to save paper. We knew that there are not enough trees to make plastic paper-based packaging. And that is why we were looking at, scientists were looking at alternatives which can provide better packaging and come from sources which are not immediately threatened. So that is how plastics came into being. And plastics, everyone will agree that plastics provide fantastic opportunity in terms of quality of packaging, which it provides to food stuff, especially, and perishable stuff. And also, many times the eatables which are packed in plastics, they simply they provide a shelf life of 6 months or so, which is not provided by other kind of packaging alternatives. So that was the advantage, and that is how plastics became a very important packaging material. But somewhere down the line, waste management in developing countries was not up to the scale, and gradually managing the waste and removing it once it gets generated and sending it for recycling or processing didn't happen, and that's why we are talking of a plastic waste management problem. To address some of these issues on a regulatory basis, the government of India actually for plastic waste management came up with a regulation for the first time in 2011, which largely focused on plastic carry bags, and essentially said that plastic carry bags, if they are recycled, cannot be used for food stuff. And for food stuff, the plastic packaging, if it has to be used, should not have any dye or any color in that. Subsequently, in 2016, as the menace of plastic became more evident, the rules were revised. Key elements of also of 2011 rules was that plastic packaging thickness was fixed at 50 micron. Subsequently, in this rule, if you see rules of 2016, the first bullet here, The thickness of plastic bags have now been increased in two phases, initially to 75 micron and subsequently in December this year, it will be increased to 120 micron. And why has this been done? Because policymakers and also recyclers believe that if the carry bags are thicker, then they'll be collected by waste pickers and waste collectors. They'll not be left uncollected, and then they'll come into recycling value chain. Other salient features quickly. I'll not go through all these bullets, but there's a requirement now to print all the information on the carry bags in terms of manufacturer, who has produced it, what is its thickness, what is the polymer which is being used, and whether it is recyclable or not. And registration number, because all the manufacturers of plastic carry bags are now needed to be registered with Central Pollution Control Board registration number. For organizations like institutions like offices, schools, including, there's a provision in the rules. It says that they need to segregate the plastic waste which is generated from other waste, keep stored in the premise in the segregated form till they are either auctioned or sent to waste collector for further recycling. So I'll not go through other elements of the rules for the sake of time, but we'll discuss it subsequently when we look at alternatives. One of the key terms which was also coined in subsequent amendments of plastic waste management rules was single-use plastics, because there was a lot of confusion, not only amongst manufacturers but also users, because in developing countries and also true in India, many times the apparently single-use plastic items which are single-used in other countries, for example, water bottles, we don't throw it many times after single use, and many times use it multiple times before eventually throwing it out. So such confusion was there in the definition. So in the rules, the definition, subsequent amendments to plastic waste management rule, the definition of single-use plastic was provided to basically address this confusion. And it said that generally SUPs are defined as disposable plastics, commonly used for packaging and intended to be used only once before they are thrown away or sent for recycling. And why? They needed to be considered and they needed to be addressed, because production of such material is expected to grow as the economy grows and more packaging is required. The positive side of it is that if you package your material well, especially food items, then there's that much less wastage of food waste. So though packaging waste increases in environment, but the food waste subsequently goes down. But as I said earlier, collection remains a major challenge because many of these single-use plastics are very low-value plastics. I'll give you an example of what Indian government has now categorized as single-use plastics, which are phased out from 1st July this year. So these are, items which are phased out from 1st July. Mostly sticks, say ice cream sticks, flag sticks, earbud sticks, cutlery items, which are use and throw, and also some styrofoam-based decorative items, styrofoam-based cutlery items. So all these items are now phased out. Legally, they cannot be produced now, because it was also believed that if they are not produced, then they'll not be used. But it will take some time because manufacturers also have sent a representation to government that they will take some time to shift to alternatives as and when alternatives become available and as and when they become more financially affordable by manufacturers to handle that. Next slide is just a illustration on how why is the issue of plastic and packaging, even paper packaging, we need to look at very carefully. There's a lot of time materials are packed and there's excess packaging which is used for packing. There's a typical example of a moon cake, which is very popular in China, and in New Year's time they give that as a token of appreciation to everyone. And you look at the kind of packaging which is used for packing a small moon cake. And what happens is when you, and many times people don't even eat full, take a bite and throw it away. So that's a kind of excess packaging issue, which now companies have realized, and because of also not only because of regulation, but also because of their sustainability goals, they are now gradually trying to reduce their packaging. If you look at all your e-retailers around you, maybe Amazon India, maybe Flipkart, maybe, and you'll realize that gradually they have started reducing their packaging and also started shifting their packaging from primarily plastic-based packaging to now wherever they can, they are also using paper-based packaging. So that shift has now started. Now I'll come to some slides on how value is derived from plastics and how plastics can be, if they are collected in a segregated manner, how they can be very useful material also. So this is a very familiar PET bottles, which are used for beverages. And you see, I mean, a typical collector has actually segregated them color-wise also, and beverage bottles separately, water bottles separately, colorless bottles separately. And what they have done is they have collected them, flattened them, and baled them so that they are easy to handle. And once they have collected and baled it, then this goes to a recycling industry. And what is done at the recycling industry is that they open these bales, they crush these bottles into smaller pieces, and then thread is drawn out of these. And then several useful products, as I show in the next slide, is made out of them. And this is one slide from a company called Ganesha Ecosphere. And they have been engaged in recycling PET-based waste. Some of you might wonder, I mean, why this is not recycled back into bottle, PET bottle to back again to bottle, which is done in many other countries. But in India, there's a FSSI notification, which doesn't allow any plastic to be recycled back to a product which will be used for food packaging. So naturally, I mean, until this is amended, the plastic waste will be recycled into non-food applications. So you can see sofa upholstery, car upholstery, toys, carpets, gloves, and in fact, a lot of companies also mix PET thread into their uniforms and sportswear, and also many apparels are made also using this recycled rPET, which we call recycled PET. Many times what happens is, I mean, in cities typically, where the large scale composting is being done, if the the material which is going into composting is not all food waste, all green waste and mixed with and mixed waste, then typically when the composting is done, what you see is this in this photograph. On the left hand side, you see all the compost which is done. And on the right hand side, you see material which is not composted, which couldn't be composted because they're not biodegradable. They have to be separated from compost. And they are separated and kept aside. So there's an opportunity there as well. And if you see this photograph, we'll find that most of it is actually plastic-based material, plastic, clothes, rags, leather, such materials, which also don't have much recycling value. So what can be done for that is something which we call in waste management. This is a fuel briquette, which in scientific terms we call refuse-derived fuel which is derived from processing refuse. And what happens is all these combustible material, which was not composted, is taken out, cleaned, and then crushed and made into such pellets. Now what happens is these pellets are much easier to handle than the municipal solid waste, which is not only smelly, but also can have infection, can have pathogens. These are processed pellets at higher temperature, so no pathogens in that. And they're much easier to handle, much easier to bag, much easier to store. And they have high calorific value, a calorific value of around 2,000 to 3,000, between 3,500. So they can be used as a fuel substitution to mostly coal. And many times what happens is, if you look at also regulation, municipal solid waste regulation, it mandates that all such fuel which is produced, if there is a cement kiln nearby, say in 150, 200 kilometers from the city, then all this fuel can be sent to cement kilns for co-processing as an alternate fuel. And this process is called co-processing. And quickly, why using this as an alternate fuel in cement kiln is win-win, not only for city governments, but also for cement kilns, is captured in this slide, where it says that high flame temperature, which is in the range of around 1500 degrees centigrade, ensures that the waste material which is put into the kiln as a fuel, there's a complete combustion, a complete destruction of that pellet, and there's no harmful substance coming out. In addition, cement kiln operation, if you see this in technical terms, we call it oxygen-rich environment. Cement kiln has an oxygen-rich environment, which is defined as a residence time in terms of oxygen. It's more than 5 seconds in cement kiln. So that also ensures that there's something which is called dioxins and furans when waste is incinerated. Those dioxins and furans are not generated in cement plants because of high residence time. In addition, cement kilns use lime as one of the raw material while producing cement. So presence of lime there, because lime is alkali, it ensures that all the acidic gases which are generated are neutralized by the lime which is there in the cement kiln. And biggest advantage, apart from saving the fuel in the cement kiln, is that the cement kiln doesn't produce any residue while utilizing this waste. This waste gets combusted and becomes a part of cement only. So that's why Government of India and cement companies are now very vigorously looking at how such material can be used as an alternate fuel in the cement kiln if they are processed properly. Another application, interesting application, is this is example from Jamshedpur. Again, this photograph was taken when just before the lockdown, the traveling was much easier and we were in Jamshedpur. And they showed us this road which is made by mixing plastic waste, which was very dirty plastic waste like the one I discussed earlier, which was not it was not practically possible to clean them and send them for recycling. So they are shredded and they are mixed with bitumen, and such roads are made. So that's another application which is also allowed by regulation, if you say solid waste management rules of 2016. And this road, they said that they laid it some at that point of time, some 4 or 5 years back, and this was still serving them well. So that's another interesting application, though it's not recycling, where once you use in road, the value is gone. And but in case if there are plastic materials, for example, another problematic plastic material is multi-layered packaging, which most of you will be familiar that all the wafers packing, wafers, chips, and all those snacks which are coming into 10 rupees, 20 rupees pouches, they are not only plastics but also metallized. So they are not recycled. They're still not viable technology for recycling them. So they also can be cut into smaller pieces and mixed with bitumen and taken for road making. Now, looking at, because the whole debate on plastic waste management and problems of single-use plastics actually started with the time when global community also was very worried about why plastic waste should be managed in a proper manner. And this is an indicative slide from UK showing that what they should be doing in terms of avoiding plastic waste at the individual level. And this is also illustration for us how we should be basically looking at avoiding plastics, single-use plastics in our daily use, so that their generation itself can be addressed. So one is number one, they said that boycott all the single-use plastics, and this has now been also supported by regulation, as I told you earlier. By 1st July 2022, many of these single-use plastic items are now being phased out in India. And you'll be wondering why. There are still many more which are not addressed there. Those many more actually including multi-layered plastics, the plastics which don't have viable alternative as of now. And those where alternatives are there, if you look at point number 2, use sustainable alternatives, use your own, for example, your own container, cloth bags, paper-based packaging, So, I mean, these subsequently now have come into being, and now more and more people are shifting towards these alternatives. In fact, we were also looking at alternative packaging movement in the country, and we were surprised that now in the country there are around 22, 23 zero waste stores, which now they don't use any packing material, and they basically give any grocery which you purchase from them into returnable container to the customers against a small fee. And when you return the container, the fee is refunded to you. So, and or if you bring your own container, they give you a material loose. So many shops have started doing this, which is very interesting. Another thing is minimize the point number 4. If you see, sorry, point number 3, shop local and request for plastic free packaging, which I said now zero waste stores in the country have started this movement again. 4, minimize bathroom and other cleaning products to the extent possible, so that their containers purchasing them can be avoided. Point number 5, though I mean it is not so much applicable for India, but in Western countries it's a problem. It's recommendation that purchase second-hand items instead of purchasing new ones. The logic behind that is that if when you purchase brand new items, they come often with a lot of packaging, and if you purchase second-hand item, most of the time it's not packaged, unpackaged, and that is how you reduce packaging. Buy, point number 6, buy material products which are not which don't become waste in a short lifetime, but they last long. Though I mean it's tough to implement because manufacturers most of the time don't want to produce something which lasts long, and so that I mean they can produce again and again. But in many countries, there's a pressure now on pressure from the consumers on the manufacturers that they need to produce products which are lasting long time. Choose product, point number 7.
Sentences, what is written there?
Sure, say it again.
We are not able to see the sentences, what is written there.
Okay, what I'll do is that is why that is why I'm actually discussing explaining that to you.
No, we are curious to note the sentences also, but not able.
Yeah,
Okay,
actually, I can't increase the size of this in this format.
Okay, okay,
but
okay.
We'll make sure that we'll share this presentation with you all.
Okay. We will just put the link of this poster in the chat. Then all of you can access the poster.
Yeah. I mean, this is as Livlin said. Maybe we'll share the link with you.
Okay.
So these are some simple ways in which you can reduce plastic waste and also minimize unnecessary procurement of material which comes in packaging. Another movement which many of these retailers, which is not captured here, but many of retailers have started doing now, is giving you option that once you purchase something online, you can actually, while the material is delivered, you can actually return the packaging if you don't want that packaging. So many retailers have now started giving this option that if you don't want the packaging to end up at your end, you can return the packaging to e-retailer while receiving the items. Lastly, the message which I want to leave you with is that we need to maximize resource recovery in the waste management sector, whether it is composting or biogas production of green waste, recycling, maximizing the recycling, and waste which cannot be recycled has to be sent for energy recovery. So that the aspirational goal of something which we now talk of, and Honorable Prime Minister also has had indicated around a year back, that we need to enhance our waste management to extent that we can aspire for landfill-free cities. Cities where there are no dump sites, where everything is basically reused, recycled, or processed into resources. So, I mean, though it's an aspirational goal, but that is something that is somewhere we would like to go in future. And there are benefits. There are benefits. Immediate benefit is if you look at the burning dump sites in the large cities, those can be avoided. A reduction in uncontrolled greenhouse gas emission, reduction in the landfill fire episodes, which happen in also large cities, Delhi, Mumbai, are very frequent candidates for landfill fires, and minimizing waste going to the landfill, so less requirement of a land for setting up a landfill site. And also, most importantly, resource maximization, resource recovery and recycle, and that in that process, creating something which we call green jobs, more and more green jobs, and recycling and value addition to waste always creates a job which is of higher value at higher level rather than simply dumping the waste. So with these few thoughts, I'd like to leave you with thanking you for your patience, and I'll be happy to take up any questions subsequently. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pandey. Thank you for sharing such a detailed sharing a detailed overview, and also giving us an eye opener about plastic waste and management in specific. And maximizing recycling is, I think, like how you have mentioned, is what we need to do. That is the need of the hour. With this, I would like to thank you again. And Agar, if teachers have any questions, you can please feel free to share it now. And Dr. Pandey is here, and so आपको कोई अगर questions होगा, please आप लोग यहाँ पर he will be able to address here. So
I would like to ask a question to Dr. Pandey.
Sure.
I'm Asha Sharma from Indian Learner Zone Academy, Kuwait. And sir, it was very knowledgeable, very informative presentation which you have given. But unless and until it reaches the students and they are apprised with these developments, it will fail in a purpose 50% at least. So I feel that TERI should make whatever endeavors are taken by Indian government, TERI should share these like of slides, PowerPoints and videos with the schools just to spread awareness among students. This is my idea. If they are made to see, then it will have an impact. Otherwise, we conduct a test, but test doesn't raises the awareness. If you really want some impact, I think these kinds of PowerPoints and videos should be shared, and we should be enriched as schools to
Certainly.
share them further with the children.
Certainly. I think Liveline's team has taken note of this and will ensure that this is also included in material which is shared subsequently with the students.
Yes, sir. In fact, we have had, we are having this educators workshop, because this is specifically for the teachers, and so that, teachers can share it with their respective schools. So this is, we are routing it through them so that, it reaches out to masses. So ma'am will definitely share it with you all. Thank you. Any other questions? आपको किसी को अगर कुछ questions पूछना है, please आप लोग यहाँ पूछ सकते हैं.
Thank you so much, Pandey sir. It was very nicely explained. And the same question was there. If you can share the information, there was a network problem also. Many teachers are having, even my teachers who were attending were not able to attend. So I was in the office, so I could attend it, but my teachers have not been able to see it on the mobiles. So please do share that. Thank you so much.
Certainly, sir.
Sir, there is a question on chat. So Bharti ma'am asks, use of plastic is also associated with economic aspect, where plastic is more cheaper. How can we replace plastic with more economical options?
Yeah, very interesting question. So, in fact, we've discussed, there are very also interesting aspects of the regulation which are now becoming evident. I discussed, while discussing the regulation, I discussed that now the thickness of plastic bags are increasing 75 micron now to 120 micron by December 2022. And interestingly, what will happen is once plastic carry bags are 120 micron, On the biodegradable bags, which are now coming in the market, which are a little expensive, but at that thickness, these biodegradable bags where there's no restriction on thickness, they can be thinner because they are biodegradable. They would become affordable. So I mean, such market instruments are already being now introduced through regulation. That material, and also once the alternative materials become available at a commercial scale. Fortunately, India is a large user base because of our large population. Economy of scale is there in India, which is not offered by other countries. So once alternative material becomes commercially available, over the years through usage, the prices would come down. That is what we are expecting.
I hope Ms. Bharti's ma'am's questions is being answered. There's another.
Good morning, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you
are. Ma'am. Please go ahead.
Sir, I'm Kanupriya Sharma from JM International School. My question is that there are many non-food products which are made of like vegan products, which are made up of plastic and the fall leathers and those shoes. Can we have another option, better option for those these things which are made up of all these?
Say it again. The example which you gave was probably shoes, which you said.
Fall leather shoes.
Yes. I mean, actually, that is where I mean. There are many such items which are not falling in terms of which are not qualifying as packaging. For example, see, when you discard your mattresses, your pillows, which sometimes have plastic filling inside, shoes, as you rightly said, sports shoes especially, use also plastic in it. So that is where the rules have suggested, as I said earlier. What some cities are doing is shredding them into smaller pieces, converting them into something which showed as a refuse-derived fuel, and using that, sending them as a fuel to the cement plants. And for the fishing net example which I gave you earlier, and many of these marine litter plastics which are being retrieved, many of these international shoe companies are taking initiatives, also not only international shoe companies, but also international electronic companies are taking initiatives to use them back into their products. So that is why, I mean, that consciousness has now come, and that pressure now has come into companies to basically not close their eyes blindly to all these issues and start playing their role constructively to address these issues.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Welcome.
So we have another question, and teachers are in fact posting questions in the chat box. We have a question regarding the rules. How do we make it compulsory to follow? And when the same question again, when this segregated waste becomes mandatory.
Waste segregation is already mandatory by the regulation. It is already mandatory. So the waste generators have to ensure that they are segregated. There are some problems in implementing that in many cities at the city level because of sometimes, interestingly or surprisingly, because of the older contracts which they had with the waste management companies, which was actually based on the volume of waste which they transport. So that is why many times you hear that people complain that they segregate the waste, but the contractors again mix it. So what is the use of segregation? So why they mix it is because the older contract which they have with the city government, that how much, whatever they'll transport, they'll be paid based on that. So many cities have now started discussing this issue and started paying contractors now based on segregation. If the waste is segregated, they'll be paid more. If the waste is not segregated, they'll be paid less. So now that shift has started happening. If you look at Swachh Bharat Mission website, you'll find that waste segregation certainly has increased at the country level. It has gone upwards of around 70%. 70% of households in the country are segregating now. But the processing is still low. But segregation has certainly picked up. Only thing is it has to be sustained. It has to be sustained. It has to become a habit. So that's where more and more awareness and more capacity building of the stakeholders will be required.
Okay, thank you, sir. Miss Sundari, I think she has a question. Otherwise, sir, we have a lot of questions in the chat box. So if you have some more time, you can maybe place it, answer this queries in the chat box, or we can put many questions.
But your next presenter would be delayed, and
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think we should respect her time also.
Yes.
So maybe
May I just come here in between, Monmi? Please, we will collect all these questions and we will share with Dr. Pandey, sir, and we'll get back to the participants along with the record of the discussions.
I think that would be
wonderful discussion.
Excuse me, please, sir. Sir, I have a suggestion more than a question.
Sure.
I'm Rita Thade from Bhavan Shri Krishnagar, Nagpur. Sir, we talk about problems and we talk about how to solve them. In our school, we have started a campaign where we have invited the children to prove that they are eco-buddy. And that has brought such a good change in our children, like those who are using plastic tiffins, they have shifted to steel tiffins. And using the electricity wisely, all the things that will make that child an eco-buddy. They get a badge for that and they carry that badge and very proudly prove that I am eco-buddy. So that can doing things like these will really help in bringing a change, and mass change children only can bring. They are the future. This we have started in our school.
Sure. Very interesting. In fact, maybe we can also look at possibility of collecting such success stories from the schools which are there in the network and sharing it with everyone as a success stories.
Right, sir. Definitely. I think we also, look forward to hearing stories from you all and sharing with us so that, we can also practice that, in our day-to-day activities and also share it with other schools. So thank you so much. And once again, thank you, Dr. Pandey, for enlightening us with the whole process about plastic waste management in specific. Thank you so much again, sir. And thank you for your time.
Welcome, everyone. Have a good day.
All right. For the next session, we are very fortunate, to have with us today Professor Yukti Sharma. She's a professor from Department of Education, CIE, at University of Delhi and Academic Secretary, Institute of Lifelong Learning, that is IIIL. And she will be taking up a special session on the adapting ESD in the realm of new education policy 2020. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us today, and over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Monmi, for your kind words. And a very good morning to, first of all, Dr. Suneel, Dr. Livleen, Taru, who has been working very hard towards it, and all the participants who are with us today, school principals, school teachers. So good to see such a wonderful gathering and such an interactive gathering, I was listening to Dr. Suneel's talk, and it's a really extremely informative talk given by him. And the questions which have been asked by the participants are equally intriguing. So it was a pleasure listening to the first session, the keynote address. And now, as Dr. Livleen had requested me that we want to have a session on new education policy, national education policy. So first of all, I'm very thankful to her for inviting me, having me over. And we are, in fact, together involved in NCERT also, related to certain development of certain curricular frameworks in relation to new education policy. So the topic, as it says today, is adapting ESD in the realm of new education policy 2020. So we all are discussing, we are hearing lots of discussions on this policy, which is now called as National Education Policy, which has come after, we know, many years. And a new policy, of course, has a vision in it although that vision, how it gets translated is a different question. But for us as educators, it's important to understand that what vision it has, and also in that vision, what is the place of education for sustainable development. So in this session of half an hour, I'm going to discuss in the beginning, what is ESD, Education for Sustainable Development? What are SDG goals? What is the relation between the two? And the second half, I would like to bring in the ideas which have been given in the policy in relation to SDG or ESD. My scholar is with us, Shivali, who is going to present the presentation, the PowerPoint. So the first slide as we begin, if you can see, it's about understanding education of sustainable development. Now, if we look at the roots of education.
Sorry, ma'am. I think the slide has not been shared, the presentation. I would request
Yes.
Ms. Gautam to kindly share it.
I think Shivali is trying to present it.
Yes, ma'am. We can see the screen. Ma'am, if you could put it on slide mode so that we have a clear picture. The
Shivali,
extreme bottom fourth icon.
Shivali, if you can put it on the slide mode and also put the second slide. This is the third slide. Yes, the next slide.
Ms. Shivali, we can still see the first slide.
Shivali, I think her presentation has stopped. Maybe she'll try again. So in the meanwhile, she's trying, I'll just continue that education for sustainable development. Before this, we had the idea of environmental education. I'm talking and I'm bringing a perspective which is theoretical. So theoretically, we have been talking about environmental education, but only with the introduction of ESD as a concept that we see that environmental education has evolved into ESD. So just to understand briefly that what is ESD, ESD is basically coming from two ideas. One is the paradigm shift that has taken place in education, and the other is the evolution that has taken place in environmental education. So it's very important for us to understand that the two have merged. So we have a broader idea of education in the form of education for sustainable development. Now, as you can see on the slide, if you see the first column, roots of ESD, it shows that in education, there is a paradigm shift, and being educators, we understand. So I'm not going to go into the details of it. We are now more sensitive towards gender and other criteria related to marginalization or inclusion. We now talk about inclusive education. We are more sensitive towards our environment. Just a minute, give me a
While ma'am is getting back, I would request teachers to kindly place their questions, if any you have, from Professor Mukti Sharma in the chat box, and we can take this up in after her session. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm so sorry. There was a construction going on in my office, so I just went to tell them that if they can stop it for some time. Yes, so I was saying that education has undergone a paradigm shift in terms of these ideas, and similarly, environmental education also had the emergence of this idea of sustainable development. So when these two were brought together, the idea of education for sustainable development is created. Now, why I'm raising this issue here is that when we look at ESD, we need to understand that ESD is much broader. We can say it's kind of an umbrella term as compared to how we looked at environmental education. So it's not talking simply about physical environment or natural environment. It is also talking about the social environment. It is also talking about the ideas which have emerged in diverse cultures. So therefore, all this has been together brought into ESD, and therefore there are ongoing debates that whether ESD is another form of E, or it is broader than EE, or somewhere the whole idea of environmental education may not get diluted because it's such a broad term. So these are the debates which are ongoing in the area of environmental education. But today our focus, of course, is to look at ESD within the policy. Now, UNESCO defines ESD as an emerging but dynamic concept that encompasses a new vision of education that seeks to empower people of all ages. So this understanding we have that the focus is more on empowering people, empowering individuals in different aspects. Similarly, goal of ESD is also to integrate the principles, values, and practices of sustainable development into all aspects of education and learning in order to encourage behavior that will create a more sustainable future. So we understand that, but this sustainable future is now not only in terms of, again, I'm saying physical environment, but it's in terms of economic viability also. We also talk about a just society now. And we believe that until and unless there is an overhauling taking place within the society, we will not be able to take concrete steps towards environment. And therefore, a major change in the society and the way society looks at others is also important for addressing the issues which are related to physical environment also. And therefore, the key characteristics of ESD are like promoting lifelong learning so that a continuous education takes place throughout an individual's life and an individual is updated about the contemporary issues which are emerging, whether in physical environment or in social environment or around itself. Then involving formal, non-formal, informal educators, all kinds of education is important. And therefore, they have to come in a partnership kind of a model in order to make any change in this direction. Interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, and therefore we have to go beyond the discipline. We have to break the boundaries of a discipline and move towards more interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary approaches. Then think using a variety of pedagogical approaches, making it more participatory, including the high order thinking skills. And also the content which we are developing should be local also. At the same time, it should be global also. So these are some of the ideas which have been shared in Dr. Shimri's book when she talks about ESD. Can we move on to the next slide? Now, when we look at ESD, the 3 prime, Shivali, if we can move on to the next slide. This slide basically talks about the basic premise of the SDG goals. Now from ESD, let's move on to the SDG goals. And we know that in 2015, these goals were adopted by all the members, including India, which is a signatory of it. And the policy in its initial pages very categorically talks about the commitment that India has towards SDG goals. So SDG goals are becoming a framework, or you can say background, for the education policy. So it's for the first time kind of happening in our country that an international initiative to which is becoming the background or backdrop for a national policy. And we are aware of the 17 SDG goals which are there, and we know how again they are moving beyond the physical environment. There is SDG 4, which is specifically for quality education, but other goals are also very interconnected and interlinked with education also and with each other also. Now let's see the interrelationship between ESD and SDG. Next slide, please. Yes. So if we see ESD, we will see 3 prime on the basis of UNESCO and UNICEF's idea of ESD. We have extracted that there are 3 main prime goals in ESD. First is to empower the individuals to make decisions, which we have already talked about. Second is to equip to address the sustainable development challenges. And the third is to focus on the resources and integrate ESD into teaching learning process. Now, the first 2 are completely focusing on the individual's development, whether it's empowering them or equipping them in every way. And the third one is talking about integrating ESD into the teaching learning process. So this is what ESD is about. Now, when we look at SDG, if we see the way SDG has been quoted in NEP says on its page number 3 that SDG 4 should ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong opportunities for all. At the same time, this is quoted in SDG 4, but within SDG 4, the target 4.7 is that ESD should be recognized as an integral element of SDG 4. So what I'm trying to say is that theoretically, if we try to weave them together, SDG has been adopted by the new education policy, and the policy is totally based on SDG. And when we see the SDG goal 4, ESD is very clearly acknowledged as an integral part of SDG 4. And it's one of the targets, target 4.7. And all the goals which we have mentioned within it, they all are integrated with each other. They all are feeding into the SDG 4, the goal 4. Now, let's move on to the next slide. So now we can look at the common premises of the national education policy. See, 2 main premises is that the NEP is a policy which clearly says that it's a policy of the 21st century. What does it mean by it? When it says this, it means that whatever vision policy has, it is rooted in the idea of the 21st century, that is the contemporary world we are in. So the policy is very aware about what is happening in the contemporary world, and whatever curricular framework, whatever syllabus, whichever way the policy wants the syllabus or school education should function, it has to be rooted in the contemporary issues which are there in the society. So one NEP is totally aligned to the 21st century goals, and within 21st century goals, SDG goals, ESD goals are the second thing is it also proposes the revision and revamping of all aspects of the education structure, including its regulation and governance. So NEP, the way NEP has been written, especially in school education, we know that there is a complete overhauling which is going to take place structurally also, and also the functional aspects, including assessment, is going to change. So that also is somewhere aligned to the 21st century goal, which is SDG 4. Now, if we see that in the policy, they have given on page number 4, they have given some principles. Before writing the policy, actually, they have given what principles the policy is based on. So when they talk about that, they say that one of the purposes is to develop good human beings who are capable of rational thought and action, possessing compassion and empathy, courage and resilience, scientific temper and creative imagination, sound ethical moodings and values. Now, why it is important is none of our education policies have talked about an individual's capacities or capabilities or development of those capabilities. The targets in the policy is totally learner-centric. It is totally based on how we can bring a change in the learner, whether it is in terms of thoughts or it is in terms of action or it is in terms of values. Now, why it is important is when we see ESD or when we see environmental education, these are disciplinary, I'll say interdisciplinary areas. They are not completely disciplinary areas. They are interdisciplinary areas which are completely based on action. Thinking is important, but till that thinking is translated into action, though that thinking has actually no use. We can talk about environment, we can talk about what actions we want to take for the environment, we can talk about that how we can make our environment sustainable, but that talk, that discussion, that thinking needs to be translated into action. Otherwise, we are not able to address the issues which we have related to sustainability. And therefore, the policy is giving equal emphasis on thought also and on action also. Even the aim of NEP is producing engaged, productive, and contributing citizens for building an equitable, inclusive, plural society. So it is talking about the various aspects which are there in ESD, whether it's about inclusion, it's about pluralism, or it's about equity. And when the policy talks like this, it becomes very evident that policy is not tied up or fixed to any of the disciplinary areas. Policy wants to break the disciplinary areas, the boundaries of the disciplinary areas, and come out of the shackles of being bound to a particular discipline. And that is very important for ESD, because ESD itself is an example of a transdisciplinary idea. Transdisciplinary means when people from different disciplines, they come together to take up the issues that are global or local and are presently in a society. So ESD, being a transdisciplinary area, can be taken up only when any education policy has that kind of a flexibility where it is ready to break the boundaries of the discipline and the knowledge is brought together in such a way that we can promote the ideas which are given in the policy or which are given in the SDG goals. And therefore, a major shift which the policy has proposed, which is very different from the earlier policy, is that the policy talks about shifting from content-based curriculum to competency-based curriculum. So as soon as we come out of content, we have come out of the discipline, because content belongs to the discipline. Competency belongs to the learner. So the policy is now actually focusing on the learner rather than the discipline. And this is actually the idea in education also. Disciplines or subjects are simply, I'm so sorry. Yes, disciplines and content and disciplines, these are belonging to the subjects. The concepts belong to the subject, but the competencies, the abilities, the capacities, they belong to the learner. So in the real sense, the policy is talking in terms of learners. And therefore, that's another important aspect which is going to bring us close to ESD, because ESD is also focusing and more very sensitive towards the individuals, the society, the community. So when it talks about environment, it is actually talking about the diversity and pluralism which is there and how it can be used, how it can be infused into the various ideas or various actions that we are taking towards environment. So therefore, the basic premise of policy, of course, seems to be aligned with the idea of ESD, since it explicitly talks about SDG. But let's look at some of the major ideas that the policy talks about in education. Now, in the next slide, you'll see that one major change that the policy has written in its section 4.23 is flexibility in choosing the curriculum. The policy is very flexible. Now, this is I'm talking in respect to school education, but there is a major change taking place in even higher education also. So the policy, whether in school education or in higher education, is trying to make a curriculum which is flexible, that cuts across subjects, that cuts across disciplines, and students and learners would have options to choose the kind of subject combinations which they want to have, even in classes 11th and 12th. Second is there is a major shift towards the development of skills and values. The policy is looking towards the development of major skills, and those skills are skills which are rooted in the 21st century. Like, for example, in the paragraph, you can say they talk about digital literacy, they talk about coding, computational thinking. So all these are some of these skills which we know that are very important and very relevant for the contemporary times. And these are the skills which we know are required for any kind of efforts or initiatives that we take in the development of the idea or propagation of the idea of ESD. In the next slide, we can see that it talks about introduction of contemporary subjects in pedagogy. So the policy is very open, in introducing subjects like artificial intelligence or design thinking, holistic health, organic living, environmental education as the major subject areas, and global citizenship education. And these are the subjects which are not rooted in any of the traditional curricular areas. And therefore, the policy has a vision, where again, it is acting on the contemporary ideas which are there right now, and they require attention. So whether it's environment or whether it's design thinking, they all feeding into addressing the issues which are around us. And that is what ESD is also about. It also talks about inculcating folk or indigenous knowledge. Now, this is also from that perspective that if we see in ESD, if we talk about sustainability, we know that the communities, the folk communities, they are more sustainable in their lifestyles. Why? Because they have a very harmonious relationship with the nature. And somewhere that has not come into our knowledge systems. And because if we talk of science or we talk of social science, they are rooted so much into the formal education system or formal knowledge systems that somewhere there is a gap between the folk knowledge and the formal education systems. So now NEP proposes to bring that indigenous knowledge into the formal knowledge systems, whether it is about agriculture or it's about diseases or it's about medicine, it's about conservation. So the idea of conservation, the ecocentric view of the environment, which the folk communities have with them, that has to be now brought into the formal, or we can say, I don't use this word generally, but mainstream knowledge system, which is given more importance and it's considered more valid. So this flexibility in what is knowledge, in our thinking about what is knowledge and what can be considered as knowledge, is also a very important aspect that would help us in thinking about ESD. Then access to the resources. At the same time, the policy also says that how we can make the resources more and more accessible. And there's a lot of resources which are now e-resources. Even during COVID times, many of the resources have went online. But before that also, platforms like Swayam have been introduced. Diksha portal, that CBSE has introduced. So these portals have been introduced, which are digitally managed also, and they have satellite transmissions also to different channels which are run by Ministry of Education. So the resources are now reaching to the far-flung regions of the country. And the advantage of this is that there is a lot of exchange which is going to take place. Now, the people who are putting on the Diksha, the experts or the students who are visiting the Diksha portal, they are coming from different parts of the country and they are contributing in their own ways, from their own context, from their own backgrounds. And that is why this would increase more exchange between the knowledge systems, which was earlier not happening. So access to the resources is for both the sides, not only for the marginalized communities, but for the so-called dominant cultures who could never understand the other perspective. And similarly, they could also, they are also able to access the resources which we use. So it has to be, it would lead to a more efficient exchange of knowledge systems between the communities. That would also lead to inclusive approaches, and those inclusive approaches would, of course, should lead to kind of equity. So these are some of the changes that it has brought in the school education. Apart from that, of course, bringing inclusive school curriculum, talking about equitable and inclusive education for all. There also it talks about lots of ideas and value systems like human values such as empathy, tolerance, human rights. Now these are on high priority in the sense that they are part of SDG goals, but they are also quoted in the policy, which was not explicitly earlier there in any of our education policy, which shows that it is totally aligned to SDGs and the ESD. It also talks about importance of school regulation, accreditation, and governance for achieving SDG 4. So a very targeted approach with certain deadlines and how we can meet those deadlines. All that is also spelled out in NEP. Now, how it's going to get translated and how it unfolds, that of course we have to see. We need more clarity on this right now. We just have the vision in front of us, so that we would know. But the idea is when there is a regulation with us, it of course help us to have some targeted goals which could be achieved in a particular time frame. But of course that time frame has to be flexible whenever it's been envisioned and translated into a curricular framework, or you can say maybe a policy commission. So this is about the school education. Now we'll just touch upon the teacher education and then I'll stop. Now school education can never be complete till the teacher education is not looked upon, because it's the teachers who are going to make difference in the schools. So although teacher education is being again undergoing a big change, because you all must be aware that an integrated teacher education program is being developed, which is called ITEP. It's a 4-year integrated teacher education program, which has this vision again, which we see in the school education, that the disciplinary boundaries are not going to be very rigid. And that's why it's made into an integrated course. It's developing, but the policy has two major sorry, yes, somebody wants to say something.
Not audible.
Not audible? Am I not audible?
Ma'am, you
Hello?
are audible. Yeah, you are audible.
We can hear
You are audible, ma'am.
Okay.
You are clear and audible.
Thank you. Thank you. So two major ideas that have been given in related to teacher education is, and one is given on page 21, which says that ensuring adequate and safe infrastructure and service conditions. So first of all is it talks about that the service conditions, the service environment of the teachers, how it can be improved. And there has to be a culture in the school also, an overall culture, which has to be developed and nurtured, which is very important. Because when we go into schools and simply if we are talking about environment, without ourselves seeing that what is my environment all about, how is my environment green, because this is a session we are having about Green Olympiad, and we know there are green buildings, we know there are green we are also having the concept of green chemistry these days. So we are looking towards ideas which are greener and which are more ecologically relevant. So if we are talking about those ideas, but sitting in an environment which is not itself, ecologically valid or sound, then of course it will not have a meaning for the children also. So superficially doing something without looking at and introspecting at my own environment will somewhere uh, um, make that exercise futile. So with that idea, the policy says that somewhere we have to look at and reflect on our own learning situation, our own learning environment, and how can we work towards it. So this whole para talks about that how teachers can be provided and teachers can also further develop that kind of an environment. But of course, the prerequisite is that the teachers should be given an adequate and adequate service environment which they can further nurture. And the second important thing related to teacher education is that integration of environmental education in teacher education programs. Now, if we look at the teacher education programs, all of you must be products of some or the other teacher education program. You'll see that in most of the teacher education programs, environmental education is always an elective subject. It's an optional subject. Even if it's not optional, if it is taught as a subject which is not very important. So now the policy says that in every teacher education program, every teacher educator has to be made aware of the contemporary issues which are related to environment, conservation, and sustainable development. And this has never come in any policy before. Of course, in 86 policy, we could not think of, because the idea of sustainable development was, that time it was actually growing, and ESD had not come also. So we cannot think, but even NCF has not focused on ESD and sustainable development as explicitly as this policy talks about. Although NCF is a curricular framework and this is a policy. So when a framework on this policy comes, it would be more in detail. The framework is in its making. So we hope that it would be more in detail. And similarly, the teacher education programs also would have a course which is compulsory on environmental education. We are hoping so, looking at the policy and its vision, because the curricular framework is not out yet, and even ITEP, that is the integrated teacher education program, is also in its making. So therefore, with these two visions related to teachers and teacher education, we also see that policy is looking at the idea of environmental education more in terms of ESD, as it's more looking at more holistically. It's not isolating and separating, physical environment or natural environment from the social environment, because we cannot separate. Our social actions, our social initiatives somewhere influence our physical and natural environment, and the case some similar is other way around also. Our physical and natural environment does also influence the social environment. So it's a mutual relationship that we have, and we cannot separate it. And that's what ESD is all about, looking at things holistically. So this is from my side, and this is what I wanted to share from the policy. And yes, the policy is a vision. So therefore, the vision has to be translated and see more concrete plans and actions which are awaited. And as soon as we come to know about it, we can have further discussions on that. So thank you very much once again. Over to you.
Thank you, Professor Yukti, for such a informative and knowledgeable session, and for enlightening us about not only SDGs, ESD, but new education policy in detail. So thank you so much again, ma'am. And I would again request teachers to kindly ask questions if they have. हम लोग को ma'am, we already have few questions placed in the chat box, so I would read that out. And meanwhile, teachers, please feel free to ask questions. So ma'am, actually this is not a question, but I mean, one of the principal, they have mentioned that this Diksha portal is basically not available to schools overseas. So I mean, if there is any other way that that can be helpful for them as well.
Okay. Okay, I'll find out about that, about Diksha portal. But
Just to
as far
add
as I
over
know,
here, ma'am. Sorry,
yes,
these schools, they are all governed by the CBSE syllabus. So
right.
we'll have to find out if CBSE can somehow accommodate the non-located Indian located schools to access to this portal. We can have a chat on that.
Yes, we can
And
have a
also there
talk.
was this question about when will the 4 years training course come into effect? I think you were the right person to respond to that.
It is supposed to roll out this year only, and the course is almost ready. The program is almost ready because I was in some of the uh, in the review committee of some of the subject areas. But formally, it has to be released in the public domain, and this year only it is going to roll out. So, although the 1 year and 2 year programs will also continue, the nature of this 4 year program is such that it cannot be taken up by standalone institutions, and therefore it will be introduced in some of the colleges. So Delhi University's 3-4 colleges have already applied for it, and they are going to take it up this year. But there is another change which is there, that you must have heard of Common University Entrance Tests, CUET. So because of this, the admissions are little delayed also, and also because of the COVID, in Delhi University we are having still we are having a hangover, and our admissions, which used to get completed by July, they are now getting completed in somewhere September, October. So the sessions would also begin late, and that is why we are hoping that this year it should be able to roll out. This is within the plan. Regarding CBSE also, because I have done some sessions for CBSE schools which are in the overseas, like in Dubai, I remember taking up one session. So I don't know why Diksha is not open to those schools which are CBSE affiliated and they are located overseas. But I can surely get back to Dr. Livleen on that, and I'll talk to CBSE about that.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, there's another question by Miss Bharti, and she's mentioned that, since NEP 2020 is, has talked about the competency-based education and ESD having, interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary basis. But if there are any changes that is proposed for the teacher education programs?
Okay, in the light of what is happening in the school education.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. In the teacher education programs also, most of the courses there are certain papers added which are interdisciplinary in nature. And there are also, I mean, I don't remember the names of all the papers because I had seen the ITEP syllabus long back last year when we were working on it. But I can tell you that there are many interdisciplinary papers which have been added in ITEP, which are not there in the teacher education programs earlier. The kind of subjects that I have just mentioned in my talk also, like environmental education is one of those areas, of course, organic living. So they are bringing in certain papers of this nature, not the same names, of course, but with different names, and those papers are going to be compulsory papers. So therefore, this 4 year course is a very rigorous and a very detailed kind of a program that has been chalked out. I can say this much only, till the ITEP has to come in the public forum. So I cannot right now talk more about it, but there are papers, I can say that.
Ma'am, I've got number of questions on after listening to your talk. I'm a product of CIE, and I passed out in 1977, very old student of CIE. And when I listen to you, I was just thinking that you are talking about interdisciplinary teaching or projects, or they should be able to relate to. Don't you think that our textbooks or our curriculum also needs the change in the first place? Number two, when you are talking about skills, when you are talking about competences, don't you think our assessment process is also not at place? How are we testing their skills and the competences and the change in attitude of the children? We are not doing that. We are giving them content. We are going in the stereotype and traditional pattern. Unless we change all this, I think whatever we are envisioning, that will not be possible. I think curriculum in the first place and assessment system in the second place. And even in TERI, I would like to say that there should be some open-ended questions. Children have got different ideas about the environment. They can have 1,001 solutions also. They can be very creative, but where is the scope? Do we ever ask them that this is the problem, you give the solution? Do we have any open-ended question like that? We don't see in the papers. This is just my submission. Sorry if I have disturbed by asking these questions.
No, ma'am. These are very valid questions. First of all, I'm very happy to meet you. And thank you for sharing that you're from CI and 77 batch. So, but your questions are very valid, ma'am. I know you are speaking out of your experience of so many years, and we have been struggling in education to change our assessment, because assessment is one aspect of education that controls the entire education system. No doubt about it. You have very rightly said. Right now also I'm sitting in NCRT, and there is a lot of work going on in NCRT. Just a glimpse of that if I can give to you. One thing of course is that they have brought a big change in terms of they are moving towards content to competency. And second important thing which they are doing is, while talking about competencies, they are bringing a reduction in the syllabus. The syllabus has to be reduced 50% at least from what it was. The idea is that the teachers have been saying this, and NCRT, it has through public portal system, they have collected a lot of feedback from not only the teachers, even from the parents. And on the basis of that feedback, they have gathered that the major hurdle in the changes which we are envisioning in the education system is the amount of curricular load. And therefore, there is a directive, I would like to say this, that 50% reduction of the course has to be done. Right now also, I am in the Department of Science and Mathematics in NCRT. I'm sitting there, and we are working on that only. So apart from competency, they are not talking about content. Now they are talking about core essentials that we have to identify in terms of concepts, in terms of skills, in terms of kinds of thinking, what we want in children to be developed. That would now decide what the syllabus is going to be. So syllabus is not being made from the disciplinary approach. That is one thing. The other thing related to assessment, the policy has also talked about 360-degree assessment. And this is what exactly what you were saying, that how can we assess rather than content knowledge of the child, how can we assess these skills, abilities, capacities which the children have in them, and how those are developing. So assessment is also going to be changed along with the core essentials and the competencies on which the work is going on. But yes, it's a very, at the same time, it is a very challenging task. So a lot of work is going on this. I can just tell you right now, I can just tell you this, how it comes up and how it develops, that's of course a different question, because it's last 50 years, we have been in this kind of a ecosystem of educational culture, which we all are immersed in, we are conditioned. So we are breaking those shackles now and coming out of it. We ourselves are products of those education systems. So assessment is definitely going to change. It's being discussed, I can tell you that.
Hello,
One
ma'am.
more question, if you don't mind. I know there are so many who might be asking that we test or we interview a lot of teachers, and there is so much of segregation in the standards of the teachers. Some teachers, they take online courses, distance education courses. The curriculum all over the India about the teachers courses is not the same. There's so much of variation in the training programs of the teachers that we find lot of teachers who are not fit for the job who come for the interview. So why not it be done on the national level, that at least the teacher training is on the symmetrical grounds in all the states of India?
It is now going to be like that also. There is a big change in the teacher education program. That is the reason 4-year integrated is brought in. You know why this kind of asymmetry existed in teacher education? Because teacher education program like B.Ed used to be a 9-month program. Anybody, I'll tell you, and it did not require any disciplinary knowledge to be taught. So what happened? In small buildings, in small rooms, a teacher education institute used to be established because it was a program that had to be done only for 9 months. They used to hire 3-4 teacher educators and they used to run a B.Ed program. A program which is 4-year-old, which requires 4 years of engagement, where we also require faculty members from different disciplinary areas, whether sciences or social sciences, history, maths, languages. There it won't be possible for people to set up teacher education institutes in every hook and corner of the city. That is why this integrated program is being introduced in order to address this issue of 9-month B.Ed program, which was being taken up by anybody. Even any kind of organization used to, open their teacher education institute, and they used to start running their teacher education program. Now that won't be possible because now there is no scope for standalone institutions. Only the teacher education programs would be run in university run colleges or institutions. But for the time being, wherever we have a standalone institute which is affiliated to university, they are for the time being allowed to run. Like CI is an example of that. So we are having a 2-year B.Ed. We are a standalone institute dedicated to education. We can continue with our 2-year program. That is it.
Ma'am, there is a question.
Yes.
Kanupriya Sharma. Ma'am,
Yes.
would you like to please throw some light on the sustainable green education development that we are talking about and how it can help in economical development?
Sustainable, what did you say? Sustainable
Green education development that we are talking about and how it can help in economical development, because both right now are not aligned actually.
No, I think we are not talking about how it can contribute to economic development. It's not like that. But we are saying when we are talking about sustainable development, if it has an aspect of environment, it has a social aspect to it also. It has an economic aspect to it also, because economics of any country influences the social and the environment related processes of that country. So that way the economy plays a role in sustainability. But sustainable development would lead to any kind of economic development. That kind of correlation we don't draw. It's basically how economics also has to be looked at. Because see, last session was about plastics. Why did plastics come into use? Because plastics were much cheaper. They could be produced very quickly. So economically, plastic was a very good option. Hello?
Yes, ma'am. I'm listening, ma'am.
So that is why plastic could very easily replace paper. Now, jute and paper bags they are trying to replace plastic. Now that we understand how plastic can be harmful for the environment, but it's not feasible because jute we cannot produce jute at a scale at which we can produce plastic, isn't it? And therefore jute is expensive, also not affordable by everybody. So therefore the economic aspect plays a very important and a crucial role. It becomes somewhere a deciding factor also. And then when we from the economic perspective only, we divide countries into developing and developed. So that narrative also comes from the economic aspect also, more than from a social aspect. So that is why that is what I must have tried to say in my talk.
Thank you so much. And I think with this, I would request teachers and principals to kindly place their queries in the chat box, because we are running out of time and we would be having another session as well about GEO in specific. And we can, like how we have, we have collected the questions for Dr. Pandey. We would likewise collect all the questions for Professor Yukti, and we will, be very happy to address the queries, after, getting it from Professor Yukti. Hope that is fine with everyone. And once again, thank you, Professor Yukti, for the wonderful session and, giving us a detailed, overview about the national education policy. So, ma'am, thank you again from the entire team at TERI. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me over. It was great interacting with everybody. Okay, Dr. Livleen. Good day. Bye. Thank you to all of you. Okay, bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye, Taru. Bye, Monmi. Bye.
Thank you. All right. For the next session, which is, I'm sure all of you are waiting for it as well, which is on the Green Olympiad 2022 about leadership, thoughts and actions. For this, I would request my colleague, Ms. Taru Mehta. She's a fellow at the Environment Education Awareness area at TERI, to share about the ABC of Green Olympiad. Thank you, Taru. Over to you. Yeah,
mute,
Taru. Yeah. Actually, she is just presenting her screen right now, and yeah. Meanwhile,
mute.
Yes, ma'am. She is just presenting her screen right now. Actually, our system here is showing some. There's some, technical error in the network here, I guess. Meanwhile, I would request teachers to kindly place their questions in the chat box. And if there is any regarding the two sessions that we had, please feel free to, clear your doubts, because we would also like to hear from you all. And and regarding Geo also, if you have any doubts, of course, all your doubts mostly would be cleared. But meanwhile, if you have anything, please feel free to write it here, so that we can further take it further. Thank you again, everyone. And thank you all. Thank you, teachers and principals, for joining both nationally and internationally. We have around, I think, 130 teachers. And today there were, I think, 130 to 140 teachers who have joined. So we are very thankful for taking out time for, attending the session. And And also, if ma'am, actually, we have another, the workshop that we had for today, it's on the GEO Educators Workshop. So we have a presentation by the project in charge about, how GEO 2020 is working on leadership, thoughts and actions. And we would be grateful if you could stay for some more time. And so that we can have the session. Actually, there's a technical error in our system here actually. So yeah, there's a Wi-Fi issue. The system that, I mean, the Mr. Ro was about to, present the screen, but then it got hanged in between. So. Also, Dr. Livleen has also shared initially that, we do have a lot of projects and, that can be taken up by the schools, and, a lot of projects are coming up, in fact, and we would request, now that we have your email ID, and we would be sharing all the information that we have. And it's not only just a Delhi workshop, like, we have seen participation right from north, south, east, west region here. So it's not just, because it's online, it has, life has become a little bit easier for us in a way to connect with everyone. And so we, so, we will be sharing you a lot of information in the future as well regarding the projects that we have that schools can take up. And yeah, so ma'am, regarding the attendance link or the registration, ma'am, you have already registered, for which you got the link and for which you could attend the workshop here. So you do not have to fill any attendance sheet. This, you once you have joined in, you are automatically, we have automatically got your email ID. So this in a way is, attendance for us. So this shouldn't be a problem to, get the email IDs. So the MS team already collects that. And yeah, any other questions if you have, you can please feel free to place it here.
Hello, ma'am. Hello, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Tell us. Yeah.
Ma'am, actually, the time was 10 to 12. That
Yes, ma'am.
it's
We
around 2
understand.
hours. You can understand we are already in the school, so we have some other priorities also. If you please could tell us how long it will go, so I could, pass on to other teachers so that they can take care instead of me.
Ma'am, actually, this session was for 15 minutes. So, we will not take more than 15 minutes. We are just waiting for the, because it got hanged, the system got hanged. So it takes time. You know how, it's both, online has both advantages and disadvantages nowadays.
I know.
Yeah.
I can
So,
understand. That's why we are waiting. I just wanted to know any idea that how
Maybe,
long it
ma'am,
will
if
so that we can
we
go
have a
for
class, maybe leave. We actually have got arrangement till 12. Our classes are
Good
waiting
morning,
for us.
everyone. Can you all hear me?
yes, sir, we can hear you.
I'm extremely sorry for what happened actually, because still my system is not functional. There's some issue with the screen and I'm not able to share it. So please apologies for this. I have joined from Dr. Livleen's system now, and really sorry for making you all wait. Thank you first of all for joining in such large numbers. It's truly a pleasure. And I find this Green Olympiad session to be important because I am speaking to the pillars of the project. Frankly speaking, this project is a 20-year-old brand of TERI, and without all of your support, this project wouldn't have reached the milestone that we are already on to. So every year you would have seen, especially teachers who keep participating in Green Olympiad, we keep on adding new features to the program. So I'll be very brief because now since I don't have a presentation, I would quickly share the new portal that is being developed and few new features that we've added in 2022 edition. I also want you all to humbly, suggest that you all join the program, make your students participate in Green Olympiad in big numbers. The last date to register is 31st August. We are planning to extend the deadline of the program, but announcement of that would only happen closer to the last dates. So request all of you to do that. A few new additions that are there this year. One is that, of course, there are two themes which got launched in 2021. One theme is environment and sustainable development. The other theme is on green skills. Now, the paper which will be conducted in October, dates are 12th to 14th of October. There, the examination for environment and sustainable development theme will be conducted. And another paper which is on both the themes, environment, sustainable development and green skills, that will be conducted in the month of November in the dates of 9th to 11th. Now, as you all know that we are transitioning towards normalcy after COVID-19. Till last year, the entire Green Olympiad was online. We were not accepting registrations also online. But what now we are doing is that we are slowly and gradually trying to move to both offline as well as online mode. And this is our new website, if you all can see. Is my screen visible?
Yes, Taru.
Yes. So in this year, in 2022, what we are doing is we have started accepting registrations in both offline and online format. We are still not very comfortable doing the paper offline because we were still very when we launched this particular program, this cycle of this year, we were very hesitant because at that time also, viruses such as monkeypox and all of that was in news. So we were very hesitant to launch the offline examination, and offline examination do take a lot of time in terms of coordination, arranging logistics and dispatching and printing, and all of that takes at least an additional month on our planning cycle. So which is why this year also we are not being able to continue with the offline examination. But plans are there. We will write to all of you if this happens next year. So this is the portal. This is the portal that we had, but the designs and some of the platforms have been changed. So we have the form here, wherein schools from remotest of locations can fill in the form and send it to us. Whereas we also have an online registration portal. So you can, on our main website, you could click here and reach the main page of portal. Now, the first announcement itself that you see is that the registration for international students is on hold currently. It was deferred till yesterday, but today we are planning to go live like in the second half. The reason why this is on hold is because we've not been able to clear out the payment gateway mode with Yes Bank, which is TERI's, where TERI's bank account is there. So EaseBus don't have an international payment gateway, and they are figuring out with RBI as to how do we go about it. So quickly, talking about login for school registration. So there is one way where we can register, we can have bulk registrations through schools. Then we can have individual registrations through students. And this is, of course, the green Geo for youth registration for college students. So when we click on the school registration, mostly what schools are doing is they are immediately going on the right hand side of the window and saying कि we don't have school code, हमारे पास school code नहीं है, password नहीं है, बहुत लोग अपना CBSE का password use कर रहे हैं. So my humble request to all of you is that on the entire page of registration, it would be apt if you read out all the instructions, because what we have done is that school coding is a new feature within the registration process. If you all will have the school code, you will be less troubled by contacting us and seeing all the application status and all the examination status with results on by using your school code and password in future. But as a first step, we all have to look at the left hand side and go on the new registration. When you click on the new registration, all your details come here, and then you have to follow the instructions, whatever is mentioned here. Now, once after this page is completed, what will happen is that you will be getting a school code and a password. And through that school code and password, you would be uploading the student's detail, which is of course in Excel format. And then you would be making the payments. For international payments, give us time till second half. We will come with a solution because we are trying to have bank transfer mode in place of payment gateway if that's not functional. But then currently it is not functional for international schools especially. But for domestic schools, everything is working, everything is in place, and we look forward to many more registrations from all of you. This year, we also have an additional feature of mock test because last year in the stakeholders meeting, it was suggested that we should have more options of preparing students for the examination because not every student is not every student is used to using online platforms on Green Olympiad or for any other examination. So we have a feature of mock test wherein a week prior, students will be given a chance to appear on the examination, but that's completely option. It depends on students to students whether they want to opt for it or not. And details of that would be available on the registration while the students or the schools are doing registrations. So this is it from my side, and I do hope that with this little information that I have shared with you, you would be able to log in and register in heavy numbers. The process that I have told you in a nutshell, you will get a completely detailed process of registration on TERI's YouTube channel. So just go on YouTube and search for Green Olympiad registration tutorial. You will get 2-3 videos which you all can go through and look at the process of how one can register. There's another feature that we added in the prizes this year for students. Of course, there's e-certificates, there's book vouchers already there like last year. But in addition, this year we also have a paid residential eco camp for selected winners. So that feature is added this year. Plus, there's also an opportunity where students can participate in international events organized by TERI, for which we will reach out to all the toppers, the country toppers, the state toppers of Green Olympiad. With this, I would like to end my session. If there are any questions, if there are any suggestions as to how we can strengthen the program, I would be, I would be happy to answer them now or maybe later or during in the chat sessions.
Thank you, Taru. And we do have questions regarding the geo registration. And there's a question that, they have, ma'am, for you, I would like, Binita ma'am, you have not received any invite for Green Olympiad. But ma'am, we have been sharing, please share with us your email ID so that, we can share the details if you have not got it so far. And ma'am, Taru, there is a question. We are applying offline for our students. So do we also need any school code and password, and how will we get it?
So ma'am, ma'am, sir, if you all are opting for offline registration, once we receive your registration form, we will manually enter your registration form like we do, like we will do the data entry. And once the data entry is done, your school code will be generated. We will give you an option to select the slot on a different date, not from 12th to 14th or 9th to 11th. For offline registration, the date of examination is different. So we will share all the details with you once we receive your form and once we do the data entry.
And
Good morning.
yes, yes,
This
ma'am.
is Shishmit from Goldcrest. Hi, I have a question that my children, we are opting for the online registrations. I have already registered the school as the coordinating teacher, but my some of the children are trying to register themselves, but they are saying, "Ma'am, we have registered, so where should we give the money?" I think the money is also being taken online only through the website, right, ma'am? Without that, the
Yes,
process
ma'am.
is incomplete.
So, ma'am, that is what I'm suggesting you, that what you can do is that go ask the students to go on YouTube and see the registration tutorial. What is happening is in individual registration, students have to fill the details. The roll number is assigned to them before even they make payments. So once they book the slot and they get the roll numbers and everything, then there is an option to proceed for payment. If they will not proceed for payment, their registrations will not be confirmed. So that stands like a temporary sort of registrations with us, because otherwise examination link will not be active for them if the status shows as unpaid within the platform. So once they complete
Good
their
afternoon,
payment,
ma'am.
once they just
You know,
yeah, just a second, ma'am. So once they complete the payment on the on their particular window, then their status will show paid and their registrations will be successful. Asha ma'am, Indian Learners Own Academy Kuwait, you've not received the emails, ma'am. Actually, as I said, that for international students, payment was a very big issue. We've been sorting this problem out with the banks for last 2 weeks now, and it's not taking us anywhere. So, this
Can
is the
can
reason
we pay
why.
through a draft? Can we
Yes,
pay
ma'am.
through a draft as we were doing before?
Yes, ma'am, that is what I'm coming to. So today we are taking this decision that we will be allowing bank draft and bank transfer, and let the payment be running. And once this is live, we will be sending the emails and letters to all our international schools. Sorry for this delay. We would compensate on this delay also. We will be extending the dates for international schools for sure. So,
Thank you.
this is,
Thank you
yeah.
so much.
good afternoon, ma'am. My
Yes.
school, as we have students, we are trying to register like since 2 days, but there is a technical glitch from the TERI Green end. I don't know. The students are, the school is unable to register. Everywhere the dialog box is saying that go for click for the registration box and again try to register. So we are trying and unable to register for a school, ma'am.
I am sharing one email ID where you could share the problem and you'll immediately get a solution. This is the email ID.
Okay.
It's like a help desk for us. Please
Fine.
share your problem on this and we will reach out to you. And please do share your phone number also so that my team members can get back to you and help you register also on the platform.
Thank you so much.
Teachers like Ms. Taru have mentioned about the tutorial. So the link, it's a YouTube link and that has been shared here in the chat box. Please see that we have both for English and Hindi, and the links are placed here. So this will give you a run through the whole, registration process.
Ma'am, also ask how can we check as a school, as a coordinating teacher, how many of my students have registered online? If I want to check that,
Ma'am,
can I do that?
ma'am, you can do that if it is a school registration. But unfortunately, for individual registration, you wouldn't be able to share it because you don't have a school code there. So it would be nice if you want data of all the students who've participated, please, if you could register through the school registration process.
That is offline.
No, ma'am, that is also online. That is also
That
online.
means
That is what I shared, ma'am. Just a second, I'll share it again. I'll just share it again. So if you see this home page, I'll come to the home page.
Right.
So this is
Ma'am,
the
you are trying to say
yes, ma'am.
teacher,
So
I can do the
yeah. Yes, ma'am. You can do the registration. So this is the first window is for login for school registration, where teachers can collect the registration fee from students and share the details with us.
Ma'am,
Ma'am,
just the
what is the
problem is in my school, currently the exams are going on. So I'm not able to collect the money from children and do this. So that is why I suggested them the option of going individually and doing the registration.
Okay, ma'am, in that case, if even if you want the student details, you can write to us, but that process is manual, so it will take some time for us to respond, because even we have like a big bandwidth of schools and queries of like this keep coming to us. So please allow us to get back to you in few days time.
Madam, please, we
Definitely, ma'am,
want
definitely.
Madam, registration link to
Sorry,
our
ma'am?
mails. If you send it, registration link for Green Olympiad. Every time our school will.
Yes, ma'am. Today only I will share the email with you, with all of you. After the workshop, since now I have all the email IDs, I'll share the share another email with you, talking about Green Olympiad and all the links, all the important links that are associated with it.
So that no need to ask anybody, we can take care about our students' registration.
Sure, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. I will. And we will definitely extend the date, but announcement will only happen closer to the last date, ma'am.
Fees, what is the fees, madam? Per student?
Sir, the fee, ma'am, the fees is 100 rupees for theme A, which is environment and sustainable development. But if the child is opting for both the themes examination, which is environment, sustainable development plus green skills, then it's 150.
Green skills.
Yes, ma'am. It's actually in October, we are having environment and sustainable development examination. In November, we will be having examination for both the themes together. So that both the themes, when it is catered, the fees is 150 rupees.
Yes, okay,
ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Ma'am, on the website, there is also a section of FAQs. So if you go through these FAQs, all your queries will be answered.
Some model papers, if we send also, we can give practice for children.
Yes, ma'am, it's there. Sample papers are there. Would also suggest if students want to opt for mock test, they can do it. Plus, ma'am, on the website, there is also one section wherein TERI Press link is also attached. So just to see that section, prepare for examination, you will get an idea as to what all platforms are there. Plus, we are also trying to tie up with a few UN agencies, UNICEF and UNESCO, so that even they can share some reading material, some preparatory material, which could be sent out to schools. So once that tie-up happens, we'll definitely update it and send all of you an email on that too.
These web links we want, madam, through our mails.
Sure, ma'am. We will share it with you. We'll definitely share it with you.
Okay, madam.
So sir, the FAQ link is also shared in the chat box now. Otherwise, if you go through the website, it's in the bottom corner, in the bottom of the page, and the link has already been shared. Also, we will also be sharing you a link for the feedback form for today, and we would request everyone to kindly fill that up. And it's an online feedback form, and we would request everyone to give us suggestions if there is any, and we would be very happy to take it. And I think with this, we end this workshop today. And meanwhile, I would request all the teachers, if they could please switch on their camera, we could quickly take a group photo. And so, like I said,
my camera is disabled. It is.
Okay.
I don't know why suddenly your camera is disabled. It is showing.
Yeah, we have put it.
saying it is disabled.
Ma'am, you can just yeah, put that sharing can be off. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And with this, we come to an end of our session. And I would I would be happy. I would like to thank basically all the teachers and principals who have joined and from who have taken out time from their busy schedule. So we are very grateful to have you all. And I would also like to thank our speakers, especially Professor Yukti Sharma and Dr. Sunil Pandey. I would also like to thank Dr. Livleen Kehlon and Ms. Taru Mehta. Also, with this, I would also like to thank our stakeholders, whoever is is a part of our project, and this is we initiated in 1999, but we have been going on so far. So I would like to thank all the stakeholders involved here, and also the program cell who has been a constant support for us. And last but not the least, the entire team of the entire team of TERI, and especially my colleagues at EEA. So thank you all so much. And just a few and thank you also for waiting so long for and taking out time, because I'm sure you it's been 30 minutes past 12, so it must be, despite all your busy schedule and your time, you have still been here. So thank you so much again. And with this, like we have mentioned, we will do some follow-ups. We will be sharing with you the the presentations and also the links, few very important links, which like starting from feedback form to the registration link, and the all the detailed process. And please go through the chat box also. You can get to know all the links there. We have placed few of the important links which will be very helpful for you to register as well. So thank you again, everyone, and hope you have a good day. And thank you so much.
The link,
said attendance.
link of feedback.
Sir, that will
Attendance
also be
link.
provided on this chat only. So this chat window will be available to you even after you log out. So you'll get it on the chat. Plus, we will also send you a mail.
Thank you.
The attendance no need to fill, madam.
No, ma'am. Since you've logged in, so we will have all the data. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
you for it.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this wonderful session.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
We want that so that maximum students will take part from our schools.
And
Thank you
yes,
so
we
much.
really hope.
Really happy.
Yeah, and we do hope all the teachers, teachers, further disseminate the information about GEO, and let the encourage students to participate in it. Thank you so much again, ma'am. Teachers, everyone. Thank you.